Hi there, folks. Glad to have you on the Fan Fest stage. Darren Sutton, we trust you're enjoying your All-Star Sunday, 2 days away from the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. And these kind of gatherings here, which we're speaking about, are always the most fun because there's a commissioner, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred. The moment he settled into his office, he made it clear young players matter. I want more young players playing the game. I want softballers on our diamond as one baseball. I want it all coming together. Play ball however you can. And it's efforts like that with this commissioner that bring us here, doing the right thing for player development, for player safety, for durability of equipment, and also for scouting. There are some that will come out of these groups that we want to know that they reach the age of going to national events, USA baseball events, national showcases, that they got there using similar equipment. There's your background. We're talking bats, USABats, and so much that has gone into the development of the USABat program. Russell Hartford is the main man of this program. He's the director. He's been working on this for a half decade. We're going to get answers right away. On the far end, you're going to help us understand how it works. Jim Hackett is the GM of baseball for Wilson Sporting Goods, and, of course, at the forefront with regard to technology, you're going to help us understand. And then a couple of groups that right away jumped in with both feet, and it's so important, Little League, Pony League, and we're honored to have the president of Pony League Baseball, Pony Baseball, Abe Key is here. Thank you, Abe. And of Little League Baseball, we all remember every single day that we played Little League. Steve Keener. Steve, thank you. And so now we learn, guys, and this has been around for quite some time, but it's now making news because on Jan 1, 2018, it all takes effect. So the USABat Standards, what do we need to know initially as we discuss this?
Absolutely. And first and foremost,
there you go.
Thanks for giving us this platform and for hosting us to educate the public on the upcoming bat changes in youth baseball. The USABat Standard is a new performance standard for youth baseball bats. So beginning January 1st, 2018, non-wood youth baseball bats will be limited in performance to that of the highest performing wood bats. The entire reason behind this change is that USA Baseball and our participating national member organizations feel that this is what's best for the long-term integrity of youth baseball, and we also feel it'll make the game more uniform at the youth level and across the board.
So, Russell, what does that look like? Who are the groups that are going to be taking part when specifically? I know I said Jan 1. You kind of want them moving forward now, but who are those groups that are so important to doing all this?
Exactly. So, again, beginning January 1st, 2018, Little League, Pony Baseball, Dixie Boys and Dixie Youth Baseball, Cal Ripken and Babe Ruth Baseball, and the American Amateur Baseball Congress will all adopt the USABat Standard within their leagues.
Abe, why was this a no-brainer for you guys? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe you reflected on it. You talked with your fellow leaders. In the end, why was this the right decision for Pony Baseball?
Obviously, we've put a lot of time into this. It's probably 6 or 8 years in the making that we've gotten to this point. And it's one of the 4 bat categories that was sort of unregulated. You have the 2 1/4-inch bat standard. You have a BB core for -3 for the high school, college age, and you have 2 3/4. This was sort of one that was a little bit unregulated. So, in discussion with all the associations and the manufacturers, we've been working really hard for a long time to try to get a standard that would be most wood-like for that teenage bat, that 2 5/8 -5, 7, and 9 and 11.
Same feelings? And how did you guys come about it? Different group, obviously, kind of feeding one another. Massive group when you talk about Little League Baseball. How did you come to the decision to join in?
Well, Darren, first of all, thank you for having us. I think this will be very informative for anyone who's here today and gets a chance to look at it online, help us educate the public about the importance of the new bat performance standard. I think it's important to understand a little history as to how we got to this point. A number of years ago, probably in the late 1990s, there were no youth bat performance standards. And Little League Baseball essentially adopted a standard which was developed through the manufacturing industry. It was called the BPF standard, Bat Performance Factor, and that's what we've used up to this point. And as technology changed and bats were being made of new and more higher performing materials, we ended up seeing a considerable amount of legislation being proposed in municipalities, states, to ban the use of non-wood bats because people felt that everyone should play the game of baseball with a wood bat. And we have good reason for believing that mandating wood bats at the youth level would drastically affect the participation rates in our program. So 5-6 years ago, Abe, I think it was, we got together and we said, look, we have this BPF standard. It was a standard that the industry actually brought to us. If the wood bat performance is what people expect, or they think that is the standard through which the game should be played, shouldn't we develop a bat standard that does perform like wood? So for many years, Little League Baseball was the organization which was doing all the testing and essentially the licensing and all the work really for pretty much the entire youth baseball industry. And anyone who's familiar with the game of golf understands that the United States Golf Association is responsible for setting the standards for equipment, for the performance standards for equipment. So that's when we got with Abe and the other organizations. We said, we really think maybe USA Baseball should be the organization that should do this. And so we approached USA Baseball, asked them if they would consider this, and the good folks at USA Baseball said, yeah, we think that's a good idea, let's do that. So they convened a very high level, very credible, very almost an award-winning committee of scientists to go forward, do all the field testing, the lab testing to develop the new standard, which will go into effect in January of 2018. So I don't know if that's too boring for everyone to understand, but I think it's important to understand kind of how we got to this point. But Abe is right. We all agree that if wood bat performance is the acceptable standard to most people, then we should have a non-wood youth bat performance standard that meets that same standard. And we signed on to that immediately when it was proposed.
I don't think that was boring. Do you? That answer was not boring at all.
I think that sums it up perfectly, and from both a historical and a current perspective, very well put.
Nice. Well done by you. I just wanted to make sure you wouldn't call him boring on this stage. I think that's great.
Never.
Why not use just wood bats then? The expert, the one who's behind all the companies, if they're saying wood like, why not just use wood bats?
Well, Darren, there's a number of things you can do with a bat other than just the simple, ball exit speed. You can make a bat lighter. You can change the weight and balance, and you make it barrel a little bit bigger. So there's a couple of things at play here. As Steve mentioned, now a bat will be you can use a 2 5/8 inch barrel all the way down through all the ages, which is a little bit bigger barrel than you would normally get on a wood bat for that young kid. And you can also make the bat lighter, whether it's -8 or -10 or even lighter than that. You can make the bat much lighter than you would if it was made out of wood.
And you have a chance, either one. But I was going to basically say, you thought and you said that your studies, and Steve, you probably feel the same way, that you would have, participation drop if all of a sudden it was just wood bat only. Expound a bit.
I can't speak for my friend Abe, but I think we probably share the same view, and I'd certainly ask him to comment as well. But the problem with wood bats for youth baseball is that all the good wood gets used by the guys that are playing here in Miami this weekend in the All-Star game, the Major League Baseball guys. The wood bats for young people aren't made of the same quality of wood.
Okay.
Very often they're top-heavy. All the weight is up in the barrel of the bat. So when you're 7, 8, or 9 years old trying to swing a bat that's basically like swinging a sledgehammer in some respects, makes it harder to put the bat on the ball. And the last thing we want to do is take away that element of the game which the ball's put into play, or at least the player has a chance to put the ball into play. That's the way the game's the most fun. That's why we say we think there would be a decrease in participation if kids had to use the wood bats, that they would have a very difficult time managing to get through the strike zone and make contact with the ball.
I think maybe also in the wood bat culture, in addition to finding good wood for all these kids, I don't know if there's enough of it, but also the breakage. And that would certainly add up quick to the economic factor of can we afford to play the game. Generally, a composite bat or an aluminum bat will last a season, or in most cases more than one season.
Will wood bats still be allowed, guys?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we have some little league programs that use wood bats because they like to do it, and some the kids find it pretty cool once in a while to play with a wood bat in a wood bat tournament. But I think if you took a survey of the overwhelming majority of them, they'd still prefer to use the non-wood bats when they're playing during the regular season. Using a wood bat every once in a while is fun. Makes them feel like the pro guys that they emulate. But I'm really most concerned about those kids that are at the 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old level. The introduction to the game and having a little bit of success with it right out of the box, and to keep them playing. And I think if we had to make them, if we forced them to use wood bats at that level, I think we'd see a pretty big drop off.
So I'm heading out. I watched this video. All right, son, let's go get one of those new bats. I understand the rules are coming up for change. Let's say I buy a current bat. Are there current bats out there now that I can purchase that once the changeover happens will be approved?
Say the majority of those bats in that category will not be approved for play starting January 1, 2018. The new standard, the manufacturers are releasing the new bat models starting September 1st for fall sales.
Okay.
So a lot of our leagues are starting to make the adjustment starting in September. When the new bat models are going to be out, they're going to start mandating for fall baseball that the kids will be transitioning into that new bat.
I would only add to what Abe's absolutely right. The other piece of that is that the only bats that will be permitted to be used in Little League play, and I would assume probably Pony as well, will be bats that are marked with the USABat mark. So there are none of them available yet. They'll only be available starting in September when they can go on sale. So to answer your question, are there any bats out there now that will be able to be used? I would say in our program the answer is no.
All right, so maybe wait to buy a bat, right? I mean, this is the time to maybe wait when little Johnny says, I need my bat. Tell little Johnny that's maybe a back-to-school present. I'll check your first progress report, right?
Exactly, and Steve alluded to that USABat mark.
Okay.
With that September 1st launch of the new bats, parents and consumers are going to want to look for the USA Baseball logo on the taper of the bat. That tells you that it's been certified by USA Baseball, and it is a USABat certified bat. And to go along with that, USA Baseball is going to host an approved list of baseball bats on our website. Now, this list updates every time we certify a new bat, so it will always be accurate. It's accessible via mobile, accessible via desktop computer. And again, September 1st, new bats go on sale. Look for that USA Baseball logo to tell you that it's a USABat certified baseball bat.
Gentlemen, again, age groups, because I think a lot of people are now curious. Age groups. This is below high school, correct?
Generally, it is below high school. It's that teenage bat. We'll say 10 through 14.
Okay.
When you get to 15 years old, you start to play high school baseball, you're going to transition over to the BB Core, which is a -3 bat. We already have a standard for that. The high school federation uses. Our older pony programs use that same standard. And, of course, college baseball uses that same standard as well.
Same answer.
In our program, it would be for junior league baseball, intermediate baseball, and little league baseball. We'll use the new USABat standard. Our senior league baseball, which is 15 and above, uses the BB Core standard, the same the high school does.
So I feel like I've gotten all the answers for parents except for I want to hear a little bit of the science behind it, Jim. I know you're going to explain how your group got there. But describe the bat just a little bit. And besides, a change in performance, what will this new bat, what will some of the standards look like from a bat maker's perspective?
From a bat maker's perspective, the keys are you want to optimize the barrel for the length and weight. In many cases, you want to make the bat as light a swinging bat as possible because, after all, the age of these players, they're looking for a lighter bat. You want to optimize the sweet spot. So as a young player is learning to hit a bat, really square up a baseball, you have a largest sweet spot as possible. And you do that through a variety of, really two main materials, composite or aluminum. And some of them have composite handles or barrels, and some have aluminum handles or barrels, one-piece, two-piece. There's a lot of things that engineers can work with all the way down from the knob all the way to the end cap that impacts all those performance features of the bat.
And every time you guys put together, you get the scientists, you do a lot of research with your families, your coaches, and your athletes. How much is safety discussed as part of the conversation when you're building a new bat?
Well, in our case, the objective is pretty simple. We don't set the standards. We build bats to optimize the performance given the standards that our customers are asking for.
Got it. So here we go. Again, remind me a little bit more of the work that went into getting to this point. You have the great bat-making company here. You have two huge leaders. They mentioned these scientists you pulled together. I know you have them written down. Kind of walk us through how this came together.
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, this was a fairly drawn-out process, and a lot went into it. It was about a 5 or 6 year process involving leading scientists on the USA Baseball Bat Study Committee. Through extensive research, they determined that non-wood bats could be built to perform at a wood-like standard, and that's the standard that we've implemented. All of our bat testing takes place at Washington State University. This same lab is one of the leading testing labs for BB core testing in the United States. And just to give you a little scientific lingo here, the metric that we use to measure bat performance is the coefficient of restitution. So this is based on a bat ball impact, and this is the exact same metric that's used for BB core testing by the NCAA and the NFHS.
Outstanding stuff. So, in layman's terms, the new USA baseball bats, how do they differ in performance from those previous that we're talking about?
So the BPF bat, which is the current youth bat, will perform slightly higher than the USABat. The USABat, as we've already mentioned, really performs right in line with wood. And from all the lab results and the field results we've seen, our scientists really have, and our manufacturers really have developed a bat that performs right at that wood-like performance. We have a lot of data backing this up. We have extensive laboratory research, and we've also done a number of field tests. We performed some field tests prior to implementing the standard, and we just recently performed an additional field test at our national training complex in Cary, North Carolina. This was a test involving scientists from Washington State University, scientists from that bat study committee, and over 100 youth participants. And we used a TrackMan radar system to collect some information on our bat performance and found that our results were really in line with exactly what we expected they would be.
He explained it, and also they took us behind the scenes. Here's a look at exactly what he is speaking of, how they get to this point as we take a look right now.
On June 10th, 2017, USA Baseball performed a field test at the National Training Complex to gauge bat performance under the new USABat Standard. With the help of close to 100 youth athletes, scientists from Washington State University, and one of the largest bat manufacturers, USA Baseball compared performance between wood bats, BPF certified metal bats, and new USA Baseball certified metal bats. Using TrackMan radar systems, our team was able to capture valuable data on bat performance under the new USABat Standard. We were also able to see the new bats in action and find out how our youth participants felt about the new equipment.
It felt the best to swing, and the ball was coming off the bat better.
It felt like just like a normal bat, just like a normal bat that I normally use in games, tournaments, and stuff.
Probably the best so far.
Yeah, I like lighter bats, so I like that one really good.
That's great stuff, and an opportunity to see the young men put it into play. Again, you took the science, you took it out into the field. I think when you put it in their hands, all the smart work that you did becomes much smarter when you interact with young people, because ultimately all of us are here for the sake of the athletes, right?
Exactly, and again, we have a lot of laboratory data backing up the standard itself and how the bats perform. This was a chance to see the new bats in action, get them into kids' hands, and really see how it performed in an actual baseball-like scenario. So again, this is just supporting all of the research that we've done so far, and we have some future tests planned. We have another field test coming up that will be in a little bit more controlled environment in an indoor facility. We're going to use high-speed infrared cameras to, again, capture the performance of different bats. So it's an ongoing process with both laboratory and field testing, and of course the participation of our national member organizations and our bat manufacturers.
What are you telling your parents when they ask you the why? Because USA Baseball makes all the sense, putting the kids first, the why, but we understand parents too. They come from all different shapes and sizes, concerns. So if I ask you why, what do you say to your parents?
Well, Darren, I think it goes back to maybe my first answer, and that is that we've been using a BPF standard since the late 1990s. There's more and more emphasis on playing the game with a wood-like standard, and we knew that the BPF standard, which was currently being used, performed just a little bit better than wood, and we wanted a wood-like standard. So we're trying to explain to parents that this is how we want to play the game, with a bat that performs like wood, but yet still gives your children the same advantage of swinging, as Jim mentioned, a little lighter bat where the weight is distributed evenly across the bat, and they can handle a little better, get more fun to play, makes the game better for kids. One item I would add with respect just for Little League Baseball is that for many years, Little League Baseball mandated only that 2 1/4-inch barrel bats could be used in Little League Baseball. And after this new standard was developed, and we saw the testing results and participated with the committee and listened to this, we were convinced that this new standard is as close to wood as you can make it, that we were willing to change our rules to allow the bigger barrel bats to be used in Little League Baseball because they perform like wood. And so, for one, I mean, we would not have done that had we not been convinced that the credibility of the studies and of the science and of the people who had recommended this performance standard, we would have stayed with 2 1/4-inch, but because we were convinced of that, we thought that would be a fair compromise for us to make, since the bats perform like. But that's just specific to our program, because other youth programs allow the bigger barrel bats to be used even today, but we don't.
Why, Steve? Why do I have to get my son a new bat? Please tell me why. Besides the fact you may tell me, look, you've known about this for quite some time if you're involved. But you're not like that, Steve. You're going to tell me peacefully why I need to do it. So please tell me why. Why do I need to buy the new bat? What are your thoughts?
I'll defer to my friend Abe here in a minute, but there's always going to be a cutoff point, and as we said, we've been telling people this for 4 or 5 years that this was coming,
right,
so that they could prepare for it. There's no easy answer to that question. That's the honest answer, is that you're going to have to buy a new bat starting, whether it's in September 1st or for the 2018 season, and that is going to be a bit of a hardship for some people. We understand that, but we believe it's in the best long-term interest of Little League Baseball, and I would assume all of youth baseball, to have this new performance standard in place. So unfortunately, it's one of those things people are just going to have to bear the burden of buying the new bat maybe a little sooner than maybe they bought a bat last summer and they think they could use it for 2 years. Well, unfortunately, this year you're going to have to buy a new one.
And your message, Abe, is probably very similar.
Oh, absolutely. Again, the educational process has been ongoing for all of the youth associations, and the transition September 1 and January 1.
Right.
Yeah, of course, we're still fielding calls from parents that want to know more about it. And I think once we have an opportunity to explain to them the science behind this, the rationale behind this, there's a little bit more acceptance. It is going to be hardship, as Steve said, for some, but not all. And again, this is only a segment of the baseball playing population in all of our organizations. You have the 2 1/4, you have the BB Corps. This is something right in between there.
Sporting goods companies, bat makers as a whole. You spoke very eloquently earlier, making it clear, Jim, that we make the bats that our athletes want because we know they've gone through the proper testing. But your final thoughts on how your response has been to these dramatic changes over the last couple of years, understanding you've had, a half decade to move to this point.
Yeah, Darren, with the amount of time we've worked together with the national member organizations and with USA Baseball, we feel really good about the bats that we're creating. For us, for our engineers, it's of course a unique challenge and a once in a many years opportunity to see what we can do starting from scratch. We've been through this before. High schools and colleges moved from what was known as a Beezer standard to a BB Corps standard, and there was a lot of anxiety and anticipation around what would happen. And both the high schools and the colleges are very happy with the change that they've made. So I'm looking forward to what happens after September 1st and sort of getting on with the new standard. And as these guys have mentioned, so a young player can play with a bat that performs similarly throughout his entire career.
Russell, Steve, Abe, Jim, thank you guys very much. USA Baseball, Little League, Pony League, Wilson Sports. This is an exciting time, and pulling it all together, putting the young athletes first. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank you.
All right, so make your plans. Make sure if you're a young athlete, September 1 is that day. So the little one out there, you 13, 14-year-olds, just hold off on asking mom or dad for that bat, or your grandparents, especially not your grandparents. You might be able to trick them now. Make sure they wait till September 1. USA Baseball logo needs to be on the bat, and you are grabbing the very best bat. We'll see you again soon from FanFest.